Okay, it's 6 o'clock.
Oh, wait.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Upton Select Board on April 1st, 2020 to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up, acceptance of ESS donations.
So in your packet is our three different memos. Just want to make sure. I have to.
Rick might want to mute.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, test.
Rick from FinCom, can you mute your phone?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It's just giving us some feedback.
Okay, so in the board's packet, you have three memos from ESS Director Tanya. And first one is a in-kind donation valued at $250 from Representative David Meridian. It's part of the Upton Senior Center for St. Patrick's Day celebration. For board members who may not have seen, he brought desserts over and brought them to all the seniors. Then also the department had a $350 donation, in-kind donation, provided by the Country Super for a lunch donation for seniors at the senior center. And then lastly, donation of $750 from the Upton Men's Club to support the first annual senior soiree, which was held on March 28th. So all of those are there in your packet for.
Okay, I heard the soiree was spectacular and sold out. And I can tell you personally, the cupcakes were delicious.
Yes.
Because I was there.
She had two.
I brought one home for Rich.
Oh, okay.
They were leftovers.
Not that anyone was counting.
Not that they were paying attention to what Laura was doing. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, to accept donation to the Town of Upton Department of Elder and Social Services for the following unsolicited donations. An in-kind donation valued at $250 for Representative David Meridian to support the Upton Senior Center St. Patrick's Day celebration. An in-kind donation valued at $350 donation from the Country Super for their luncheon donation for the seniors at the Upton Senior Center. And a donation of $750 from the Upton Men's Club to support the first annual senior soiree, which was held at Upton Community Center on March 28, 2025.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Surplus equipment requests from Chief Police.
So I'll handle this. In your packet is a memo from Chief Palmieri identifying that they'd like the board to designate 25 tasers as well as associated accessories as surplus equipment so that we can dispose of them in conformance with Mass General Law 30B. From the chief, it is their intention to make them available to some of our neighboring towns, supplement their taser equipment. But we funded replacement tasers, and these are now surplus to the department.
Anybody have any questions?
No,
No, I think that's great.
yeah,
I do too, especially what they're planning to do with them.
Right.
So,
Exactly. If we can make use of them, let's make use of them.
Exactly.
Neighboring town is always a good thing.
a
I
motion?
move that the board vote to designate 25 Taser X2 electronic control weapon PCWs in addition to 13 batteries, 13 holsters, and 193 cartridges as surplus equipment and authorize for their disposition pursuant to Mass General Law 30B uniform procurement.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Matthew, you're up. Thanks for coming.
Aye.
So, library is here. tonight to request authorization to spend from one of our trust funds. There are a number of bequests that have been set up through the years to benefit the library. And the one that we spend regularly is the Laura Dirth Trust Fund. And we usually request slightly less than the total interest, so it builds up a little bit over time. And this year, I guess the process is I bring the request to the library trustees, they approve it and refer it to the Board of Selectmen and the Board or Select Board. And the Select Board then has to authorize any expenditures from town trust funds.
That's correct.
So we are asking this year for up to $1,500 from the Laura Dirth Trust Fund in FY25. And that supplements the library materials budget.
Any questions?
No, sounds great.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that the board approve the request of the Upton Library Director to expend up to $1,500 from the Laura Dirth Library Trust Fund in FY 2025 for the purchase of library materials.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you for coming tonight.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's easy.
Yeah,
We love
everything should be so easy. Next is the execution of the contract with Dodson and Flinker. Michael,
Hello.
hi, how are you?
Evening. Good, how are you?
Good.
Mike Antonellis, Director of Land Use and Inspectional Services. On the call, we have with us tonight is Peter Flinker and Dylan Sussman from Dodson Flinker provided us with the scope of services for the West Upton Visioning plan. Now, I'm assuming everyone is familiar with the work that Dodson Flinker did for the Upton Center Business District, and that's exactly what is basically before you, only you need to look at West Upton instead. So doing the same type of visioning plan, obviously will arrive at different recommendations and goals at the end of that project. That is the work that is being proposed, in addition to an update to the Upton Center plan, as things have changed, been accomplished, and moved since then. So,
Okay.
so that is generally what is in front of you tonight. I sent a memo that just includes and makes note of the funding source, which is the earmarks, which have been dedicated, which has been recommended from the EDC to this board. The EDC is fully behind this project and the allocation of the funds behind this project. So they're eager to get going on this project for sure. So anyways, I invited Dodson Flinker if there was any questions about the scope or anything tonight.
Okay.
I guess I'll leave it there.
Any questions?
No, I think this is something that's been discussed a lot, and I know it's been discussed even more with the Economic Development Committee, and it's been discussed a lot here, so. Any questions?
Almost.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the select board vote to authorize the town manager's execution of the contract with Dodson and Flinker for the West Upton Village Center Plan and update of the Upton Village Center Master Plan, Posters Plan in the amount of $75,168 to be funded through the 2022 Economic Development Bill earmark received by the town of Upton as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you both for coming. Every meeting should be this easy, huh?
Good work.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Dylan.
Yeah. All the hard work happens outside of the meeting so that this conversation takes 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. We were well prepared.
Hours outside. of this.
Exactly. Yeah, for those watching, it doesn't always go like that. Number E, update on annual town meeting article proposing amendments to Affordable Housing Trust bylaw. Michael, you're up again.
I was just looking to see if there was any affordable housing restaurants aside from.
Yes.
So this is on for the town meeting warrant. It is an amendment to the general bylaws, Chapter 5, Upton Affordable Housing Trust. In your packet, you should have a clean copy of those changes. Underlined, obviously, is what is being placed into the language. Strike through is what is being taken out. Mostly, it's just some updates to the language generally and make some edits and corrections in format. But really, the biggest changes that are happening within the document, within the amendment to the bylaw is things such as, what do I want to call it, a section, under powers of trustees, 5.6 R. It says notwithstanding anything to the contrary herein, the select board approval shall be required for any single action that expends or commits more than $300,000 of trust assets. Previously, it was $200,000, which was the total was over a year. So the trust can't, or I guess not previously, currently, the trust can't expend any more money than $200,000 within any given year, and no more than $50,000 in any one action. So that the trust has been grappling with that and realizing that, while they could maybe do something, they can't do much with that money. 300, and I'll have to double check that 300,000 number because it might have been 350, but
I think it was 3.
Was it 3? We talked about 350. I was double guessing it in my head when I was reviewing it for tonight. Okay, so 300,000. So the trust arrived at that 300,000 number, up from 200,000. And the example that I kept providing was a buildable lot, like a 1 acre buildable lot, is worth $300,000, right? So if something were to come available through 61A, forest, agriculture, things that you get first right of refusal that comes to this board, you're not going to get anything for under that. And you're surely not going to get anything that is you can build on, which is the purpose, the underlying 5.3, which the trust added a purpose section, which is obviously to create affordable housing within the town. So if a situation like that arises, the trust wouldn't be able to act on it, mostly. Even with the first right of refusal, they wouldn't have the cash on hand in order to proceed with something like that. So that was just one example. And then the other thing that the trust wanted in there was on 5, when there was a section in here that says that, it was earlier, it was actually 5.6J. Provided that any borrowing by the trust shall require prior approval from town meeting. So I know the trust really wanted to have those guardrails in place. Everyone's very trusting of each other within the trust, but the future iterations, we want to make sure that there are appropriate guardrails put up to keep things in line. So those are really the two biggest changes. Like I said, everything else is sort of just format and language. But it was increasing that cap from 200 to 300, and then conveys or disposes of real property or personal property that constitutes for more than 50% of the trust's assets. That would also need to come before the select board in order to get approval for those sorts of things. So just moving things around to create a little bit more wiggle room to be able to navigate in today's world, but while still maintaining those guardrails.
Comments, questions?
Nope.
Brett?
Nope.
Me neither.
Okay,
Great presentation. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Have a good night.
You too. We're like 10 minutes ahead of time. Town manager reports, updates.
Okay, so before you have my first memo for manager's report.
Mhm.
Really wish I was creative enough to have it all like April Fool's Day stuff. But my worry in municipal government, that might be.
It's
That's the only part somebody would
And
see.
funny for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Facebook,
And
whoever.
honest, people may be really excited about something to come up with, and then find out if they.
Can you imagine somebody's watching the very first meeting, here's that?
So, stuff going on. So the DPW building committee did meet and selected Vertex as the OPM for the DPW project. Vertex was the OPM for the community center as well as for town hall. Very excited to have them on board. And one of the first things that they're working on is assisting us develop a timeline and especially focusing on selecting a designer to get on board for that project. FY '26 budget continues. We're reviewing and evaluating the budget with Finance Committee. They're meeting tomorrow night. They met last week and they're going to be meeting again the following week. Tomorrow night, they'll also hear presentations from Mendon Upton Regional School District as well as BBT and continued discussions about the budget and town meeting articles. Included in the board's packet is currently version 9. This is essentially the near final version with acceptance of changes, as we will discuss later on. Want to give the board an update on town meeting clickers. So staff attended a virtual training session yesterday, discussed logistics as far as software, what's involved in setting it up. The vendor will be there with us on town meeting, and we're gonna meet in advance, make sure everything runs, and then make sure during town meeting that things go according to plan as best we can. Ironically, because we have 3 capital projects being proposed by BBT, all of which are debt exclusions, we are anticipating that we're gonna have higher than normal turnout. We just don't know what to prepare for. Because we're using clickers, we're gonna grossly overestimate, including setting up satellite space in case we need it. Our hope, and in talking with Mendon Upton officials, they don't foresee that quite frankly, it's
The first meeting with clickers that we're gonna have
But we
$1 million worth of spending.
You're getting ahead.
So- so-
I have no patience.
So Mendon is the next night, so they're
Okay.
really out. But I did contact Grafton. Our systems are compatible and
Okay.
they did say that they would be happy to.
Mendon's gonna need more clickers too. I think they're
Yeah.
gonna be popular as well.
How
So
many do we have, Joe?
500.
500.
So we're planning on trying to get another 250. Grafton has more than enough, and so I'm working with them on logistics as far as just making sure we get theirs. They don't have their town meeting until the second Monday of May, so there's plenty of time for getting things back. But that is something that we're working on. And then once we finalize the warrant and we start working on motions, they're gonna actually enter things into the software and so that they can be pre-populated to help us out. So that's gonna be interesting, not only for implementing that, but then also dealing with potential large volume of people. People may have seen that MassDOT has put up some signs identifying that road work is going to start on 140 starting April 3rd. This is the paving project that is going to start from the Grafton Upton Railroad lines, come eastward to William Street, and then pick up after you come on Milford Street, past where Governor's Landing is, sort of by the business that has the Rock and Auto
Okay,
at the top of the hill, and then continue all the way to Hopedale. So the contractors have already been in touch with our police department and are coordinating details. This will happen during the day. So there will be some inconveniences during commuting hours. But milling is going to take a little over a week, and then they'll come reset some of the structures, then they'll come back with paving. They'll probably happen beginning of May. But this should be fairly quick going. And again, because we're not doing any work from Williams to basically just past Prescott, going up the hill, the downtown area of 140 is really not going to be impacted because this is really on the sides. That center portion is really going to be the project. That'll be a different thing altogether, but that calendar is still up in the air because we're approaching April and I haven't gotten an update on the 75% plans yet.
just if you're leaving
You weren't
town.
inspecting them, were you?
Huh?
You weren't.
No, I think I made that multiple times to the board. Well,
Yes, yes, everyone wants to know when it's gonna start, and I'm like,
Exactly.
just sit back and relax.
Within the departments, town clerk, dog license renewals needed to be done by April 1st. Now, people, if they need to register their dogs, would incur a late fee. The town annual election is May 6th. There is one contested race, and that's library trustees. Treasurer collector, property and personal taxes are due May 1st. Also, the department is working with the town clerk's office to process stipends for elected officials. Those will be processed on April 28th for payment on May 2nd. Board of Health is currently permitting food truck vendors for the Men's Club 4th of July Festival. That is a lot of effort from our staff as well as inspectors, and it's great that this is happening ahead of time because as members of the Board of Health and even the Select Board may know, it takes time to get these done. And when you're dealing with a lot and vendors that are in and out of various towns, sometimes things don't get permitted in time and can lead to some logistical problems. The annual hazardous waste day will be June 7th from 8 a.m. to noon at the DPW facility. And also, staff and various departments are continuing to have an eye on any cuts that are really on the federal level. And one of the first maybe felt within the Board of Health, that's funding associated and supporting the Blackstone Valley Partnership for Public Health. This is where there's 7 towns that get together and we all sort of share public health services. They've had funding cut, so services may be reduced or cut and potentially reach back. So we're going to continue to work with Board of Health, not only the board, but also staff to monitor and towns and town managers will monitor situations to make sure that we can have some sort of plan going forward. The Elder and Social Services Department has filled its vacant van driver position. So they're undergoing training right now. The ESS department also continues to support residents in need, and there's actually been an uptick. They were expecting maybe things to level off or maybe get a little bit better once we got out of the holiday seasons and the cold season, but they are seeing an uptick in need, and they continue to work with our emergency service departments because that's sometimes how we find needs when we have medical check-ins and things that uncover other problems. As was stated, the first senior soiree was held last week. It was sold out, 75 people attended. And what I hear is people are already planning and looking forward to next year's. I heard that some sleuths within town found all sorts of yearbook pictures from many of our seniors, and we're posting them on the screen. Would love to somehow get a copy of that.
Yes. Yes.
Within the land use department, as board members who are in attendance may recall, we had a public forum to discuss and solicit input for the town common design plan and streetscape within Upton Center. The ZBA has continued to see a slowdown in activity, but in looking at things, it's really more because of the change in law allowing accessory dwelling units. That was a significant amount of approvals that came before the ZBA. Land use department and building department continue to see a lot of activity. Now that it is by right, they're seeing more foot traffic inquiring what's going to be needed. So even though we may see a drop off in the amount of special permit applications for ADUs, and talking to Michael, we're expecting that we're going to get an uptick in the number of permits because then it can occur by right. Staff in that department also attended a battery storage hazards workshop at Holy Cross, learning more about not only storage devices, because within homes, people that may have solar are also supplementing with battery storage, but also every single device now seems to have some sort of battery, and there is an increased incidence in fires and accessory structures because of maybe some faulty batteries. One of the things Michael had said was to department heads this morning was people should be really careful about buying secondhand battery scooters or other electronic devices, not knowing where they came from, not understanding maybe there was replacements, and that it's those types of devices that they're also sort of seeing some fires and increased calls to fire departments and damage to personal and private property. It was good to get our staff trained on some of those things to look at, not only from a code compliance issue, but also make sure that we can be aware and notify and educate residents in town. Michael and the EDC are requesting to be placed on next select board agenda on April 15th. The purpose of this would be to review their work. They had hired and the board had approved the contract with BSC. This was about a year ago to look at the reuse of Holy Angels and the associated adjacent properties, including the ground lot. So they've been meeting over the last couple of months and they want to sort of provide the select board with an update and get the select board's feedback. And then lastly, library is continuing to see not only great attendance, but also now that the weather is picking up, a significant pickup in activity at the playground. Yeah, great resource to see, but it does highlight that while it's a great facility, we have a lot of people visiting. We are seeing more kids in the parking lot. And potential conflicts of use. So we did discuss as sort of like town staff, like even having police come through a little bit more often because you do have kids on bicycle going through the parking lot as senior programs are letting out. So it's a great multi-generational facility, but the warm weather brings some people on their bikes, and we've been noticing some conflict. So we're trying to find a good way of handling them. So,
Okay, thank you. Any questions? from anyone on the evening? Yeah. No. Okay, we're at the public input or comments. Do they have any public input? Hearing an overwhelming roar from the crowd. Next. So, 5, discussion with finance committee on year-end transfer process. Steve, I know you're here. Rick's online. Rick's on.
All I see is Rick and you. I don't see.
You guys were scheduled for 6:35, a little early. Why don't we skip over you and? Okay, so let's review and approve the mailbox damage policy.
That's the one Dennis discussed the last. meeting.
Yes, but it was grossly underfunded and
Yes.
yes. Does anybody have any comments, questions? I did read it. Did everyone read it?
Yeah.
Oh, speak of the devil.
Oh, my
Looks good.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Wait a minute.
I move that the board vote to adopt the amended mailbox damage policy as proposed.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Let's go to the Upton Men's Club funding request fireworks. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Just your name for the record for Sue.
Brad Didio. So this is again for the fireworks festival this year, seeking some additional funds for typically safety related items, tents, porta potties, two-way radios, sound system. Prices continue to go up across the board. I'm now in the process of trying to find another sound vendor just to see if I can find a smaller, a lower price, but they keep jacking the price on me. So that's essentially what I'm seeking additional funds to cover those related items. I provided some quotes that, would cost me this year for the event. And I'm hoping to see if I can get, I think the amount was down. Amount is,
$8,748.
I haven't broken it down to if you need it.
Here.
Yeah,
Got it.
we got it.
I did send it to you.
You did, and we got it.
So we do appreciate your participation and funding for the past several years. So we're hoping that you help out again this year.
Okay, questions, comments, fine?
No?
My only question is, what's the balance in that trust fund? knew I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, hold on, because we just looked for these balances.
Thank you, sir.
For the William Milton balances, 104,151.35.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes.
Town puts money in men's club funds, the money that's collected for entry, where does that go?
That goes to pay for the event. That specifically goes to pay for the fireworks display, just the fireworks display alone.
For the men's club?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, all the total event price is around $35,000. And it's all paid for by sponsors, donations at the gate, vendor fees, those types of things, as well as any town funding that we can get. So, but it's all, it's essentially a break-even event for us.
I think that
Just
was,
asking, I was not, the men's club did its responsibility, I'll say, or give the town.
Yeah.
So,
okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that the board vote to approve the Upton's Men Club 2025 Upton Fireworks Festival funding request for $8,748 to be expended out of the William Milton Trust Fund.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Let's hope
Thanks for all the
for
work.
clear skies.
Weather.
Thanks for all the work.
It's always a crapshoot. Thank you.
See you
See
later.
ya.
Okay, let's go back to 5A, discussion with the Finance Committee on year-end transfer process. There's 3 of you present. Do you need to call a meeting or? Good.
we're not,
Okay, there we go. We'll just discuss. Watch out for those chairs.
Apologize for my financials. By the way, before we start.
Actually, it's 6:32, so technically I think you're 3 minutes early.
Before we start, tomorrow night, the finance committee will be hearing from Dr. Cohen and Dr. Fitzpatrick on their respective budgets. So downstairs, G7, you are cordially invited.
What time does that start?
I'm sorry.
so,
Thank you.
One's at 7:10 and 8:15, I believe, the time is something like that.
Thank
Who's
you.
gonna be there? Obviously, you said Dr. Cohen, and who's the other person?
Dr. Fitz.
Patrick. Okay. Who's leading off?
So I can just sort of circle us back to where this all started. You know, we were discussing the recreation budget, and there were comments made as far as the end of the year and the negative, and that Kenny did transfers to resolve it. So the question is being, where did they come from and how it was done? So I had consulted with Kenny as far as letting him know the questions that were asked, and sent out an email dated March 17th. And one of the things that pointed to was that the way that we had been voting on town meeting articles, and I'm just going to pull this up to put it on the screen just as a visual. So, and this is the specific account that we were talking about, 630 Beach. So as you can see, we have salaries and then expenses. And then we have a total budget line to be, total budget to be voted. So those group those things together. Towns will handle things multiple ways. Some will group by governmental category. Others will have that each one of these lines is a separate line that's approved. Here, I had consolidated things so that beach stayed separate than historic, where DPW actually has 6 accounts that all fall under DPW, and those are all separate. So that the idea would be, if in this case recreation, if they either in expenses or salaries went over, they could then manage their budget. And that's what happened. That 32,225, they exceeded that by 3,000. They had underspent in expenses, and Kenny moved from expenses to salaries. under our existing finance policy, budget transfers within the same account, so these would merge, can happen by the town accountant, and the town accountant maintains files of all these transfers. So Kenny has records as far as all that was done. So one of the things, and then the email sort of discussion was, let's come back as a group and just, especially because we're in the process of starting to work with FinCom, and as they finalize their budget processes and we finalize the town meeting warrant, we all work together, and it is the finance committee report to town meeting. Within that is the budget. So I think it's a good time to make sure we're all on the same page. There are some towns that do something similar here, but then address things on policy so that if you did separate out salaries and expenses as separate, where if a department was $50 over, they had a threshold that you could transfer back and forth. Anything over a certain amount then would be triggered to come in front of finance committee or select board for a year-end transfer. So the idea was for us to gather around and identify what we wanted for a process, so that if we make a change to how town meeting votes, we can all be on the same page.
So this is the salaries just for the beach. Now, every year they hire the same number of people.
No, Maureen, that's just the example that we use.
So this came up because of last year.
Yeah.
During our budget process.
Last year.
During our budget process, had nothing to do with recreation. Recreation was the second one that we were already initiating a discussion with Joe saying how what I'm going to explain to you happened. So during the budget last year, the parties that are here knew about the HR director, the employment agreement that was higher than the approved salary. During our budget process, we kept asking Joe, how are you covering this? We've made no faults, special town meeting. How are you covering this? Because prior to this nuance where we simplified approving the budget, had nothing to do with line item transfers. The technicality that Kenny came up with when this discussion was happening, in my opinion. So we've always thought you can't transfer between wages and expenses. Going back before this, we had as low as $250 that people were coming. It was reviewed, it was understood. I don't remember any time that anyone has rejected a line item transfer for someone properly managing their budget. This one came through and we're like, how are we paying for this? Joe kept saying, he's got it covered. And we were like, well, you can't transfer between wages and expenses. I'm looking at the files that Kenny does. How are you doing this? Year closes, then Joe comes clean and says, well, I moved it from town manager expense here. And I'm like, whoa, like, we can't do that. We haven't done that ever. And he said, well, according to Kenny, we can transfer between this because of how we changed, how we voted. And I'm like, that is not how this was brought to us, how it was understood. Like, this is outside of anything we've ever done. Like, we need to discuss this. So that's how we brought it up. So when the RecCom came in and then they said, oh, well, Kenny made a line item transfer, like, our heads were like, what is going on? Like, where are these line item transfers coming from? Like, wages are super important because what happens, I don't want to call Sue out, but we budgeted, a certain amount for executive admin and a certain amount for HR director. Both were higher than what they came through at. All understood. So if we had a line item transfer between wages and expenses, we know Joe has explained, hey, I got 60 approved or whatever it was. I had to hire more. She was qualified, all these other things. Perfect. But without that conversation and having that line item transfer, if you look at the line items, and again, just pointing her out, like, it looks like we hired her and then gave her an immediate, increase, and people are going to be like, what is going on? So I just think that we have to keep wages and expenses separate. I'm not trying to micromanage. I don't think anyone on the finance committee is. It's just if you transfer between expenses, library director has a bunch of line items, perfect. That's his role. I don't care what they do between expenses, but the wages is something separate, because when you see someone's wage from a budget, no one ever looks at actual. We don't even show actual unless you get that weekly report. Then all of a sudden the budget comes out and it's much higher. you're like, why is this person, did they jump? Did we hire someone? Like, there's no explanation. So
And
this is just transparency to me.
Sure.
I've never-
Clarification.
I can go back as far as I've been a member of this committee. I don't think there's been one time where we've been like, no, we're not going to allow that line item transfer. But it's more the visibility of, okay, well, what's going on? Because we only hear from department heads once a year.
My
During the budget process.
understanding is salary is a whole separate line.
They are. We do salaries and wages separate
Yes.
lines. But we
That
vote,
doesn't include expenses.
right, but we vote one line item.
yeah,
So the
The
technical.
total budget, yes.
So the technicality is that since we vote one budget, that budget is what that department head can transfer whatever he wants within all those line items. All the salaries and all the expenses can go between there. We've never done that before this FY 24 change to vote on one. I think the voting on one was for the moderator, to make it easier for the moderator to say, we're gonna vote one number.
How,
So I said to Joe, well, we can discuss it, but the way we solve it is we just vote two numbers, or we just agree that the policy is all line item transfers have to go through some process that are going between salaries and wages.
So, and that's where it comes down to, you can set up Kenny, under the existing policy, already has to keep track. So from a transparency standpoint, at the end of the year, all he has to do is write a memo to both select board and the finance committee and say exactly what he then needs to adjust to then zero out, or, we could be over in expenses and under in wages going the other way too. So he already has to keep track of it. So from a transparency standpoint, all that's really needed is Kenny summarizing that in a memo, just detailing all those changes. Another thing is that you could have it still this way, but a policy saying that any transfer is greater than $500 from either way need to then go in front of finance committee and select board. Many towns, and part of this was also, quite frankly, again, my own experience in other towns, where they did it as governmental, public safety, recreation, social, where these items from, say, town manager's office to finance committee, you could transfer between those because it was voted on as a governmental total. So this is really about what does Upton want? What does Upton want? And so that, we can identify, one, how do we want the motions to go? But then also if it results in a policy and the expectation that these things are listed out, want to be able to give both boards that information. But if having someone have to come to attend a meeting for a de minimis amount, that's one of those things that, is there a way to accommodate that?
When you're saying Kenny would do the list, like, I thought that's how we reviewed it. He gave us a list of things and here are my line item transfers.
these are the,
The people who met.
That's when they had to come in front. So,
I have another question.
Yeah.
Expenses come out of the revolving fund, correct?
only
we're
some,
not talking specifically about the beach. With this,
Just any line item, expenses,
The revolving fund, they manage on their own. That's,
But-
I don't think we have.
their expenses, what expenses don't come out of there?
so this, just popped up. This 630 is the only thing that is due by the general fund.
Right,
And this includes lifeguards and then some site-specific and programming-specific that aren't supported by programs. So this is the account where that transfer had happened.
270,000 or whatever.
That's the revolving, that's
Right.
totally separate.
Yeah, so Maureen, when you're looking at this, just look at your, so we have salaries of 33,975, and then we have expenses of 25. So the way that we have it set up now, we approve that 58,975. And that means that, don't even think that it's just the beach. That means that that department head right now thinks that they have 58,975 to spend however they want. I know we have people that are set up, but say someone leaves, they can hire someone at a higher salary and then say, yeah, I'm just not gonna do any site improvements. So I'm gonna save money here, I'm gonna go there, I'm within budget, but then what happens? Next budget cycle, this salary is higher, they come back and still want that same $9,000 or $10,000, yet they didn't spend anything last year, so now all of a sudden we've artificially increased that without any visibility because there's no transparency, so.
But what
The
I'm
the
saying,
line items are missing, the line item review was missing last year, which is why we have been bringing this
well,
up.
if they were over last year and they're over again this year, something's happening with that budget. They're not up to date. I mean, how do they, they were over last year and then you come into this year and they're over again this year.
Yeah, I mean,
But I-
these are hour, I mean, specifically for the beach, I think it's hourly, it's lifeguards, it's, they need to hire.
and that's all general fund money.
This just happened to be a,
Yeah, you're,
for example of what the,
I know it's an example, but in an overall revolving fund, salaries do not come out of the expenses.
in a revolving, you're,
They are in a revolving fund. Now, how can you take from expenses and put it into salaries?
so here, so don't think of this as recreation. Here, if they only spent $8,000, they have $1,000 in there, and they realize that, uh-oh, we hired one too many, or the lifeguards worked too many, or the gate worked too many, and all of a sudden it's 33,000. Then they're just moving the money from one to the other. The allocation, they're just changing the allocation from one to the other.
I understand that, but what I'm looking at is a revolving fund and a general fund subsidy.
That's
I
been
don't think that's happening.
Conversations.
I don't
How
think
did he take from expenses and put it into salaries?
this is all.
That's all general.
That's
fund.
all general fund. We're not even talking revolving fund.
So-
Revolving fund, they get an amount.
So all that is part of the site work and whatever they
That's
got
all funded
approved.
by the
and-
general fund.
Okay, that's what I want. Because
Yeah.
you can't take expense money out of a revolving fund and pay salaries.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I'm,
That's not
no,
what we're talking about here.
That's not
We're
what
just
we're
talking
talking about
about
here.
salary.
I
But
understand,
you-
but
but
that's
you-
what I was trying to clear.
Exactly. That's what was confusing. So we got that cleared up.
The only thing that I would
Revolving fund is
clarify,
separate. If they
Yes.
earn more, then
That's,
they can spend more,
They're-
as long as their balance doesn't go over that.
well, they can only carry forward so much at the end of the year too, and the rest goes into the general fund.
I mean,
They're probably spending it.
so I mean, the only thing that I would just say is while technically if someone wanted to take what, as Steve said, like if they viewed that they only have, that they in total have 58 and they can sort of spend as they want and then move money up, that's not how unless you're an elected board, because I can't look at those things. But for those, or at least I don't have any jurisdiction on the town manager sector. But from a practicality standpoint, if this was COA and I'm seeing that their wage line is increasing, I'm giving them a heads up. I'm letting them know we stay within what is really budgeted. And also I think we have to just recognize like the employment agreement, that also is a one-off. That is not anything I think anyone wants to try to do again. So my focus is what is the 99% of what happens? And realistically, and this is, I think it will be consistent this year as well as last year. With the exception of one account, everyone else is managing their salaries and expenses in a way that they're not having adjustments. But if the idea is that we want to be able to know what transfers in between, Kenny already has to track it. So if there's an interest in knowing what happens, that can be produced. In the end, it's a policy discussion that really falls between both boards. The select board is the one that adopted the financial policy that identified moving between accounts. The budget that gets presented to town meeting is the finance committee. The warrant is the select boards. The select board typically drafts the motions, but with the budget, there's conflict as far as, is that motion really drafted by the finance committee? So by being on the same page and setting expectations, I think that's really just where we need to be.
Well, to keep the departments up to date on where they are with their budgets, do they get a monthly report?
They do. The same report that you all get, that I forward out, they get, finance committee get.
Not the whole financial package, just their specific department.
No, they get the monthly totals So that email that includes everything from expenses, general ledger, and revenue. What you get, what I forward to you, all the department heads get that as well.
Can I ask a rhetorical question? How many of them look at it?
They don't understand it.
Oh, they
You gotta
understand
go
that.
one thing to the other.
So,
An
I have,
individual department should be, you ought to be able to pull.
I look at it.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, we're not that large of a
Doesn't
town.
matter. They have to know where their budget is to
Yes.
know where.
Yep.
So,
And I, just to support my departments, they know their budgets. We have excellent department heads that know their budgets.
I get it. I technically am the chair. So to cut, thank you.
You should
To
gap.
cut, I know, I don't like the gap. I've been tempted to, very seldom have I been tempted to hit
A
people.
little bit a little
but-
closer.
No, I knocked it over. Poor Tom Bear. I moved my computer, it went off last week and he was like, you gavelled me. Anyhow, so to cut to the chase, Steve, what you're saying is if we developed a policy that said any transfers greater than, say, 500, we'd all be made aware. Is that what you're looking for as the finance
Yeah,
committee?
I was expecting that any line item transfer that would have to
Back
happen
and forth.
used to come through both departments,
Right.
both committees.
Right,
And we had
And we-
the ones who were, the ones who were most, affected by it.
Sure.
Having to meet, outside of the budget process was the finance committee. You guys are already meeting. Joe's already doing it. Kenny's apparently already doing it, but there was,
so,
that was missing. I don't know if there has to be a dollar. It's just any
so,
transfer, just so everyone is aware. And
and
it's not supposed to make it more complex. It's just, if he's already doing it, then I think this is.
so we need you to be kept in the loop. What I want is to keep the finance committee happy. You guys are the numbers guys.
Well, the other issue is, and he alluded to it in the very beginning. If we put more lines in here, which I maintain we probably should, to show what, but then you're gonna have to change to a landscape format and you're gonna increase the number of pages in your report and all that. But,
Dead columns. He's saying lines, he means.
yeah,
Oh,
Got it, yeah.
yeah.
actual to,
So that you can see what was, right now, you can only see what was appropriated at the annual town meeting.
Right.
You don't see anything that was added to it or a transfer into it, okay? So I'm looking at, the town, just take one of these lines. Municipal hearing, that changes. All right. Executive assistant. It says last year,
Sorry, Steve, sorry, Paul, so I can fit it up on the screen. Are you looking at the FY 26?
yeah, I'm just looking at the line, 122 on this current budget that you're dealing with.
Under my town manager budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Just so I can pull it up for the board at the same time.
There are
So-
reasons why we just show budget and budget, and in the town manager recommendation, he did add in the fall special town meeting compensation changes, so you can see them, it's not included in the line items, but there is a number, so you can see total to total, it's there.
but when you look at this, it says that the approved budget was $60,000 for the executive assistant. Well, the fact of the matter, that might have been what approved, but it wasn't the actual appropriation or the actual expense going to it. It was that, whatever the delta was that was added to it. And if.
How would-
no,
Rick has a question.
How,
I-
how-
take any offense. I mean,
From-
this happens with a lot of them.
yes, so from finance
Really?
point of view, what do you want done to simplify your job and put us all on the same page?
Either we revert back to the way we were doing it, or I'm fine if you guys say 250, 500, and then they're communicated, and I guess that would default to actual department line items, the only thing that would come through, but I think it's just easier to do them all
So
together.
I think you're right, Steve. I don't think we've ever denied any.
So one of the things, and this is what, when I came on board, what was explained to Ken, and this is under Board of Health. If we approve things as printed in the warrant, each one of these is a separate approved budget line. And to go from demolition of buildings to trash bags, if we need to
Yeah, we're not
transfer.
saying that.
I'm just saying, this
I'm
is
saying-
how,
I'm just saying salaries and expenses should be separate. That's all I'm saying.
if that's, so doing something like that.
Hold on. So that, but that's not all you're saying.
A
Because-
comment to the chair. It's
Yeah.
Rick
Yes, Rick, go
McGuire
ahead.
here.
Yes,
What we've had over the last 9 to 10 years that I believe has been working is we ask the directors, and you see it in the larger departments, fire, town manager. For instance, we expect those directors to manage their budget. What's that mean? In the expense lines, they're managing, let's say, salt, road work, utilities, gasoline. And what's worked thus far is Kenny will notify us at the end of the June, May, and say, these are areas where we're going to have overruns. We need to switch money. And we've been aware of that. And for 9 or 10 years, we've accepted virtually all of that in that category. But what's happened is we see that the salaries are a separate category and should be managed separately, such that when these salary changes happen, whichever way, up or down, that come to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. Now, at least it should be the Finance Committee. If the board is fine with waiting until the end of the year, I see that as okay. But that's the way we've managed for a number of years. And I really think that's where we should stay. It makes things the easiest. I'm not sure putting an artificial number in there for everything is the right way to go. But at least if we look at the broad category of expenses, those directors should manage it. But when it comes to salaries, you have the personnel committees involved and a number of other committees. That really salaries should be looked at as a separate entity.
Well, I didn't say that.
okay, Brett, wait a minute, Brett had a comment, please?
Go ahead. That's fine.
I don't want to go back. No one wants to go back to a vote on every specific
No.
line item. Okay? Now, this is worked out. We'll look to, the budget we used to do, this was on the spreadsheet, and then Kenny would have to transpose it into VEDA. Okay, so the last couple of years, this presentation was all in VEDA, so that we wouldn't have to get into that trying to match them, right? So I don't want to go putting in, these sub-line items or whatever you want to call it. Town meeting goes a hell of a lot faster. Instead of voting 350 lines or whatever it is, if you can do it by doing 50 or whatever the number is. So, my point is, my thought would be, let's just be a little more vigilant with how these transactions take place and, have it noted somewhere. But I still come back to the fact that can't match up appropriated previous year and match it to the year that you're going forward in, because a lot of stuff takes place in between time, which doesn't allow you to accommodate. Again, if you look at this, this 60,000, this looks like this position is getting a $10,000 raise. Somebody gonna look at this at the town meeting and say, what the hell's going on here? This person got a $10,000 raise.
There could be other reasons.
They didn't get a $10,000 raise.
Yeah, there could be reasons why that as well. So going back to this, I think when Joe was hiring, that was what he thought he was gonna spend. So then it comes through at a higher salary. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why they look the same way. But there are other scenarios where I think the breakout between salaries and expenses should be more transparent. That's all.
Just gonna say that.
Fine, if you want.
No, I said before that I was doing more than these salaries. What? That's all we're looking for is that difference between the two.
Do it.
So what I'm hearing, there's two things that can happen. One, I just highlighted the total budget. We can either develop a policy that says that any transfer within a department between salaries and expenses goes in front of both boards. We can take this square and insert it right under salary so that we're approving as separate items, beach salaries, total budget to be voted, and then a beach expenses, total budget to be voted to separate those out. Or some sort of mixture. I just want to make sure that as we approach.
My understanding is we voted separately, then you have to,
Yes,
you can't even do the transfer. There's no
no,
way around
it
that.
would,
But
it,
if you keep it the way it is now, total budget to be voted, then there's a policy that says you have to do it, then we keep town meeting simple and the policy. So.
and that's.
You guys are just looking for
Okay, so
more
we're not making any
transparency.
changes, but we're adding a policy that says what we're already doing, which is
We're not-
publishing monthly transfers.
No, so if there's ever
Doesn't the,
an appropriation change between wages and salaries, right now, there's no transparency.
You mean between wages
What
and
do you mean?
expenses?
Okay, I'm sorry, salaries and expenses,
right,
Kenny can go and just change that allocation, as long as that total doesn't change.
right,
He can move something from expenses up to salaries.
but the transparency is, didn't,
So,
What's the
so that's
transfer?
where, one, and this is already existing. So I think it's really just expanding on this. If Kenny already has to maintain a file of any of these adjustments.
I mean, it's all.
He doesn't,
He can-
he
he can-
didn't know about it.
Right,
There was
but
nothing like that given to us last year, Brent. So this is all-
because it wasn't.
Just ask.
So we can add in a number 4,
It is.
saying the town accountant shall provide a memo detailing all transfers between wages and expenses within any approved appropriation.
Like, so what do you got? You guys want like a monthly report, like whatever?
I don't care about, it, I just want
It can only
to,
have.
line transfers is what we used to get. We used to get a report that we would vote
How
on
often did you get the report?
once, end of the year. That's all it
Once
is.
a year.
This, and
That's it.
So you want a once a year report of that? Okay.
it can only happen within the last 3 months of the fiscal year.
Which is how we've always done it. And it just kind of ended.
Can I just add, Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes, please, Paul.
Keep adding, talking wages and salaries. Salaries aren't the issue, because salaries are the, what the, board members get paid, the 500 or the 750. That's a separate line here, all salaries. Wages are what the hourly employees and the full-time employees.
So if I've got this, just to put it all to bed. You guys used to get at the end of the year, any transfers between expenses and wages, and that didn't happen, and we're looking for that to happen again. Am I correct?
And we used to get any
Yes.
amount if they switched.
Right, any amount, 50 cents, yes,
Right, you
exactly,
just
and it
want a
didn't
once a year
happen.
Report of year-end transfers.
It didn't happen one year, so they want it to happen in the future. Yeah,
That's what we're looking for.
so we're looking for the old policy to come back, that it
That's
used to
not
happen.
a policy, it's just getting the
It's
year-end
just getting
transfer.
the numbers, yes.
You
So
got it?
we're gonna task,
Year-end
Kenny,
transfers once a year, give them to the finance committee.
Well, a report of those activities.
Yeah.
yes,
That's
But
easily
we're-
able
So
to.
you're making this into two things now, or else we're gonna.
I'm not making it into anything. This is your ball, whatever you want to do with this thing.
We only want it once.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to do it and it's all in the same spot and we're voting the entire thing and that's all we're looking
Well,
for.
so-
So if for one that says, here's everything and here's the one you have to vote on, because we're still gonna have to vote on one that goes from health services to town manager.
Correct, like I wanted to make that distinction, that if you were transferring from Board of Health, Beaver Management down to health services accounts, those that 152 that's on the screen and
But they're saying
One
within
fifty, those are
expenses and
different.
within salaries and wages, they're fine. They don't want to see that. If there's a transfer within expenses,
Within expenses within the department, we don't.
Then
care.
expenses
Not a
within the
problem.
department, they don't care.
No, because we don't vote that. way.
That part I'm totally clear on. It's
I think we're all saying the same thing in a different way.
it's interdepartmental transfers that requires, under our policy and Mass General Law, that requires end of year transfer to go to you.
Fire department needs expenses, you move from town council to fire department expense.
That's a year-end transfer across the counties.
If we needed to.
We get that every year.
Yep.
See those transfers, we vote on them.
It's pretty much a.
Yeah, so the question ends up being within a department appropriation, just referring back to beach. If we added in our existing policy that said, the town accountant shall produce a memo to the select board and the finance committee detailing any transfers between the total salaries and expenses. Does that address the need and itemizing the details? Does that address the desire of the finance committee? Because that's
I
where,
think you're looking at two, so now he's gonna do one report that says between salaries and expenses and another one.
no, it'd be all the same. It would be all the same.
Yeah.
See, Brett,
One requires approval, the other is transmitting the
Yeah.
information.
I mean, we're just gonna review and approve the whole thing, so.
historically, this goes way back to prior to, I think, with the Municipal Modernization Act, when they allowed to do these year-end transfers with the approval of the Board of Selectmen and concurrence to Finance Committee. I believe that. Before that, we used to have a special town meeting. You have to have a special town meeting. You know, umpteen items, transfer this from this to this to this. Okay, that's what we don't, like, we haven't had a special town meeting to close the books in, I don't know, 10 years, 8 or 10 years, probably, maybe long. But
And I want
this made life, the whole point of this was to make life easier.
And I want to add more accounts because, for example, under town buildings, electricity, gas, maintenance, there's no tracking in Vadar. It's all lumped together. I want to start adding in accounts so that we can track things better and monitor things better. I just don't want to then add things back in and then go to approving things line by line and then need to go for a year on transfer to go from electricity to gas.
Can that be accomplished within Veda, the way
Yes.
we're doing this? You could put in these,
If
you
we,
put in these sublines.
yes,
And that makes sense,
That
especially
makes sense.
if we're trying to control expenses, you know. Turn
So way
something.
back when Bob Reed was here, he says, Paul, why don't we just put down wages, expenses? Wages and expenses, 2 lines for every department. I says, that'll never fly. That'll never fly.
Okay.
Because first off, the people at town meeting, that go to town meeting, they're going, oh, what's in this? What's in that? You know, you're gonna have holes all the way along, because they're gonna wanna know what's in it.
Right.
So,
We're all on the same page. We resolved
so
this.
because we're very quickly coming up on when we need to start preparing the finance committee report. I just want to make sure I heard it right. We're handling things by amending the policy. This example of the beach will stay the same and we'll address it as far as a policy, as far as what that is required. Going between recreation, beach salaries, and then recreation expenses. That's,
Yeah, I think so.
okay. That's, I'm starting to do formatting, taking the warrant and putting things in, so I just want to make sure that, I have everything all set.
It doesn't change anything for how we vote. We're still gonna do total budget to be voted.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we can then accommodate that other level of transparency by way of a policy, and then that makes a little bit more straightforward setting expectations.
So that somebody in 6 years isn't having the same conversation we just had.
Right.
but these sublines, electricity, gas, whatever you call it, they're not gonna show anywhere.
I would expect in next year's town manager report, you start seeing them show up there.
On the
I-
management side.
Not
Yeah.
the one that we vote.
No.
The one, yeah, the one we vote just.
Yeah.
Rick, you're remote. Do you have any more questions or comments?
No, I don't. I think we've explained it and made our position clear.
I think I've got Sean as well. That's Sean Craig.
Sean, is that you? Any
That's
questions,
me.
comments?
No, I'm good as well. Thank you.
Okay. All right, if everyone's good, we'll move on. Thanks for coming, guys.
This is an FYI, we've been going back and forth with Joe on the budget stuff, so we're getting close.
Okay.
So we still have a couple of meetings, so we're waiting for Kenny on some adjusted revenues that he's comfortable with, and then see where we land. But our approach was to get everything back that they proposed to take away to reduce.
Okay.
Because every time we heard from a department head, they assumed that it was a 1 year and then they needed it back. So we don't know if that's the right approach. So
You take it away this year, it becomes a structural deficit at the beginning
Next year.
of next year.
So we're close. I think Kenny has some concerns about local receipts and we want to talk through with him and just get aligned, and we have to have some of the reductions stay. The Norfolk Aggie thing helped.
Yeah.
I don't know what the 16, how it's gonna go from 14 to 16, but that's.
I think he just gross numbers saying 16 and really it's 14 and change, but then it probably goes up to 15 and change next year.
We don't have to do transportation for the Tri-County.
We do.
Is that included in the night?
Included.
No, it's negotiated separate.
So
The
it's
school district coordinates that with other towns. That's why we get invoiced separately.
I mean, we shouldn't be in the discussion whether that student graduates, from Tri-County, it's a no-brainer. Just seems
Right.
expensive. But it's
Not when you choice someone out, it's average, I think.
But aside from that, we seem like we're in good shape, depending on where we land there, but.
That sounds good. Sounds good, yeah. All right, thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. Paul, anything further? I see you tapping your finger.
No.
Usually that means the wheels are spinning.
No,
Okay,
see you tomorrow.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
7 o'clock. And we're gonna try to keep them to the high points. Because you've seen the MURSD presentation, and Dr. Fitzpatrick has one as lengthy, so this will be his swan song, so.
Yes, it will.
All right.
Thanks. Have a great night. I'm gonna skip over the annual scholarships. Skip over the annual scholarships and go to authorization for remote participation.
So we can pass over this because the governor on Friday signed H62.
Right.
That extends all the state of emergency public meeting provisions that came in with COVID through June 30th, 2027.
Okay.
Reason why I'm recommending against adopting anything else is that there is supposed to be a more comprehensive set of legislation dealing with hybrid meetings, virtual meetings, and remote participation. And if we adopt certain sections, we may then end up having to make future adjustments. And because this emergency provision has been extended, it sort of just covers everything.
Okay,
So I just recommend that we pass over it.
okay, that works. So vote to open the warrant, amend and or insert articles and to close the warrant.
Okay, so within the board's packet, let me just, you have a track changes version of number 9. So specifically, some of the changes that occurred within that were dollar figures associated with Mendon Upton Regional School District's capital projects. So those dollar amounts are new. Also, BBT asked for a change in language for their stabilization. So that's where you can see the old language is struck through and underlined the new language. Realistically, there's not, the purpose doesn't change, but it does identify a process by which money spent out of the stabilization account needs authorization of 2/3 of the district school committee, not the towns.
The committee.
To approve. And many towns have sort of raised objections that we don't know how much could be amassed within this account, and that there are potentially significant capital projects that if they came to towns would not be supported. So I plan on going to tomorrow night's meeting just to sort of hear some of the discussion. I am aware some of our adjacent towns are going to be voting no on that, because specifically that once this is created, it's only within their school committee that authorization for spending it for a specific purpose is authorized. But I expect tomorrow, as part of the finance committee meeting, there's going to be more discussion about that. There's two things that just came in today, and so you see all the dollar amounts. I've already coordinated with Jay Barr, business manager over at Mendon Upton, make sure that they're also okay with the language. There was a change to Article 26, which is the building envelope. As part of the capital budget committee meeting, it was discussed that by saying a masonry restoration study was not descriptive enough for a town meeting, in that the true intent, which is really to come up with bid specifications, be highlighted. So I included language saying that retitling the article to Town Hall Building Envelope and Masonry Restoration Standards and Specifications Report, because that's going to basically say how we're going to do this, and we'll go directly into bid specifications rather than a study to figure out, oh, is this just a report that gets put on a shelf and nothing really substantive comes out of it. So that was at their recommendation. I did forward to the board the scope of work for the fire department apparatus for drain repair article. You'll see in that estimate a estimated probable cost of $289,000. That's a little higher than the estimate from the fire chief of $200,000, but that also has a significant contingency. It has an amount, because we're dealing with unknown times regarding tariffs and other things. So hopefully it's fairly high. But my recommendation would be to include that revised figure. And then over the next couple of weeks, we can have more discussions with the fire chief and really talk about, is this right at this time? We will need it at some point, and costs will get worse. The other change, there's a couple other changes that really involve the stabilization articles. Finance committee, in their review, they may want to pare down the dollar value for some of the stabilization articles. So for example, Paul had wanted to see a new stabilization article for the surface over at the community center.
Right.
I just put in the full amount, thinking $10,000 a year for 12 years. We're up at 100,000, 120. Like, let's just put that in. We can always dial it back. They're thinking about maybe changing that to be like 45, and then 45,000, then like 10,000 a year for the next 8 years to get to that amount. Same thing with capital stabilization. They may want to reduce that a little, and also the amount going into stabilization. But those are things that can happen as part of the motions. We don't need to change the warrant. Before you is one thing that came late in the day. It's right here. Came in from animal control officer, and he had indicated that there's maybe an enforcement issue with dogs down at Kiwanis. And he had said that if the board was going to be considering opening up the warrant to amend articles, would this clarification be allowed by the board to be inserted as a separate article. And what this does is specify that under beaches, that when we're talking about any public beach, we're really talking about the whole Kiwanis complex, including recreation fields, facilities, or the parking lot at Kiwanis Beach. My understanding is that there's an issue that while people may not walk their dogs on the beach, they walk their dogs during the fields. This time period, May through September, is when we have a lot of activity.
Mhm.
And to try to prevent dogs and associated messes from being in those fields when you have kids that play and other recreational programs going on during that period of time.
I heard, I spoke to Ryan, he said it's an issue because some people define the beach as sand to water and they think their dogs are allowed at any time. I guess he's bumped up into some issues, so.
Have we
There's a
heard
big
from
difference.
Recom or Maria or gotten their opinion?
This came in at 5:30.
I mean, I'd want to find out from them.
Something we talked about last year though, wasn't it?
I remember him saying something about an issue and that the language was not as accurate as maybe it should have been, but I wasn't aware that maybe we needed to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime we're dealing with recreation and Kiwanis and the fields and all that stuff, like I'd be curious as to Dennis's opinion and Maria's opinion, just to make sure that we're not
Hmm.
putting
Can we
rules in
put this
place
on
that
a
cause
future?
extra trouble for them.
You have people from out of town and lots of kids, and when you start having dogs running around there, and it's only from what, May to the end of August,
September.
September 30th?
So this is for specific.
Basically, that would cover soccer, baseball,
Yeah.
kids that play.
We don't, my understanding is under our existing control of dogs, we don't have other similar, say, restrictions on dogs from, say, the soccer field on West River or trying to think any other
Say the
field.
the baseball fields.
What about like the schools and like Leland Field and all that stuff?
So actually, that is the other facility that, while it's sort of co-owned by both, we are responsible for the maintenance of Leland Field. So this would not address those fields because this specifically is on the beach. Number 2 is cemeteries.
I mean, obviously, for all the reasons the animal control officer is citing, the dogs sound like they're a problem. But I also, and I'm not a dog owner, I've never had a dog, that's not coming, but I know that there are people that live in town that are taxpayers that do have dogs and they have kids. And I've seen families with their dogs at soccer games and things like that. And so it's fine if we want to say that that's not okay, but like, I know there's like people who take advantage of this, but then I'm also just thinking about the Upton family who's like going out on a Saturday to watch their kid play a soccer game and want to bring their well-behaved dog with them, right? So that's all.
Right.
You ever hear of the dog days of summer? You can have the best dog in the world, and the heat affects them. I wouldn't want to take the chance of having somebody bit. And especially with its crowds.
Joe, could we put this on a future meeting and have Mike come in and get an opinion from Rec?
So
Because I don't necessarily
And
need to hear from Mike, I
DPW?
want to hear from.
Well, I want to hear
DPW
why
on
this
that one.
was presented. He tried to catch my ear this morning and my phone rang and, you know,
It-
some of us have to work for a living.
I mean, I'm sure it's a problem, and
Yeah.
there's problems with people using these fields that are like
Oh, yeah.
like soccer teams coming and playing recreational, like drinking beer and playing
trash.
recreational soccer, right? So it's like, there's that kind of issue, and then there's like people just going to their kid's soccer game. with
Right,
their
and I
Golden
don't know, but I don't know if Maria or
Stuff.
Dennis said, hey,
That's
bring it
the
to,
thing,
you
is
know.
I don't want to create an extra headache for Maria
No.
and Dennis, because they're the ones that are there every day.
Right.
Whereas Mike gets called very rare, well, he gets called as often as he gets called, I don't know how often he gets called. But Maria's the one that's there every single day and is gonna have to deal with this more than anyone else.
So Joe, do
So-
we have time to put this on hold and get an answer? Open the warrant and put something back on?
So
Or do
That's
we
it.
put a placeholder in and then pull
Vote
it?
to put a placeholder, put it on there.
I would recommend the latter, because I,
Okay.
That's fine.
It would
Fine
be-
with that. I'm totally-
unless it was a utter emergency at the next meeting, it really needs to be about executing the warrant. So I want to have sort of two
Let's-
versions, one with this and without the board to sign. So that night you can say, you know what, we're just pulling it. We can invite recreation in, with now virtual being back an option. At least we can get participation, we can get the input from Dennis. And then we can say, that night, you know what,
Right. If Dennis,
Let's
if
pull it.
Dennis and Maria go, yeah, no problem, great, easy. done.
Yeah, Dennis and Maria say, hey, we were the one that told Mike to
Told-
do
that-
this.
That's the thing,
Okay,
they
it's
might
a
have
big
already
thing
caught.
too.
Exactly.
Exactly,
They've already
that's what we
agreed
don't
that, "Hey,
know."
Mike, can you go do this for us?
Okay, so let's put a placeholder in and then if we pull it, we pull it.
yeah,
And in the meantime, if you can reach out to Dennis and Maria and Michael
oh yeah.
and say,
Oh, no,
Why?
I'll make sure, my recommendation would be that when we do the motion to,
Mhm.
amend the articles as presented and to insert the, proposed, amendments to, 122-4 dog control. To insert that in, yeah, next time we'll have just before execution, just a discussion. That way, if we feel like we just want to pull it, we can then pull it.
right,
And I'll have two versions for the board to sign.
right. That works.
Is that okay?
Works for me, works.
Yep.
Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Then we
It's
have our
not so much
answer.
the why, like, we kind of know why, it's more like, are they on the same page? They're on the same page, great. That's all.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
yeah, obviously it came up for a reason. and
Hey.
we just need to know the reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
good. All right,
So
how do
we
you
have
motion that?
You motion
Get out of here.
what Joe said.
Yeah, exactly. What Jill said. Hold on.
well, what's the famous word?
So
I motion as explained or something.
Yeah.
Laura's having a brain fart.
Yes,
tonight.
I
It's been a
move
long
the
day.
board. I don't know. Not yet.
I can give it. I
All
move
right,
that the
Brett.
board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, to reopen the warrant for the Thursday, May 1st, 2025 annual town meeting, and to amend the articles as presented and discuss, and to immediately close the said warrant.
no, we need to then,
Oh.
and insert,
As discussed. Oh, and to insert subsection 122-4 control of dogs article.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. There we go.
I'll have that as also, immediately close the warrant.
And yes,
Yes, as amended.
okay. G, vote to amend questions on the 2025 annual election ballot. Do we have any? Boy, that was easy too. Okay, I have a question. We're back to the scholarships. Do we usually do that in executive session or open session? Oh, we do it in open?
Yeah.
Okay, didn't know.
But that's why we
Okay,
use the
good.
numbers versus
Okay,
names.
all right, so, we can we can do everything else but that. We'll, pass over the meeting minutes from March 18th. Approval of the executive meeting minutes, March 25th. Maureen and I were the only ones there.
I move, you don't have any.
I have no, look at this. Once again, I have no corrections, but you're here to hear that tonight.
An 8-second meeting.
Yes.
I move that we approve the executive meetings minutes of March 25th, 2025.
I second the motion.
Maureen Dwinell, aye.
Laura have I.
Yeah.
Okay, that's done. Okay, so now we're on to the scholarships. Did everybody get a chance to read them?
Yep.
Did everybody rank them?
Yep.
Okay. But,
If you could just have, I just want to open.
So we've got 6 $1,000 scholarships and 2 $200 scholarships.
Right.
yep,
All right.
let's see what we agree on.
I need
I left my ranking numbers at home, but I will, I have,
My
what was your recommendation?
My
Brett?
recommendation, and let me just see, I think I've got 5 for sure. So this is for the $1,000 one.
Mhm.
I had 3, 6, 8, 9, and 11.
And I have
Okay, go ahead. Six,
Wow.
3, 6, 8, 9, and 11, you said.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're my sort of for sure. And then I had a couple that were on the fence, so I'll let you guys.
And I have 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6.
okay. I
Oh,
had,
do you want the other two also?
no, yeah, let's work
So
on the,
your
The
Yeah,
$200 one?
yours were 1 through 6,
Yeah,
like just the.
except for, yeah.
coincidentally,
Coincidentally, 1 through 6. was
Coincidentally.
one- Okay, all right, I'm just making sure I'm understanding. Got it.
okay,
Get 'em all what they're studying. and everything.
Yeah.
okay. I had a question for everyone. One of them came in late. Does not following directions hurt anyone's chances?
I kind of, this is pretty informal. I mean, it's.
Not a
it's up to
problem.
you. Whatever you think.
I'm trying to remember. We are not close on any of these numbers.
What do you mean? We got 3 and 6?
Well,
Go ahead.
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, but the list is at home. That's my problem. That's what I said. But I'm trying, and I saw you doing your list as I was talking earlier. And I
right.
was like, I looked at my list and I was like,
See, that's what
crap,
that's
mine's
the
at home.
downside of being chair is you've got to actually.
You gotta actually bring the right papers
See,
to the meeting. Yes, well, I did have,
Do- So we can do one of 2 things.
okay.
We can do this next time. Is that
I'm
an
gonna
option?
do that.
And when we do that, my apologies, but I was sitting here looking at it and I
Like, there's
thought
no
if I
reason
did the
to
name.
force it unless there's some reason.
Yeah,
to
no.
force it. Like,
No, because actually, it's
timing.
school vacation, timing wise, we're ahead of it this,
Right,
all right, so my apologies, I just,
What is class?
right, rather than having you try to like prove it and read it and.
we weren't getting them done till May last time, we're still in good, we're way ahead of the
Oh, no,
game.
that's not.
What do you mean, what's
Oh,
not right?
those aren't my numbers.
I
Those are-
was.
That's why we kept saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I was like, that is amazing. What are the?
Well, I
like,
got the
I'm
list.
Like,
fight you on this, but.
Excuse me, I'm like,
Got it.
wow, all right, what were your numbers?
I have, where is he? I have 9. And then, let's see, go 5. And 10. 1. And 9, that's 9.
Yeah.
No, you had that already.
5, 10.
Let's see, she is Bruno. 8
Mutter to yourself.
and 6.
Okay,
Look, so we're waiting.
That's
So-
better, right?
And make 5 my 6th, because 5 was one of my like on the fence ones. And so that
Okay.
means Maureen and I are together on 5, 9, 8,
You're on 5, 6.
6.
You're on 5, 6, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Together,
Yeah,
5, 6, and 8, 9.
that's.
Good thing you made me pull that stuff.
I was like,
what?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm like, that is.
And he asked you 3 times, and then I was really stressing, I was like,
You're like, wait, mine weren't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm like,
no, I'm like, and I'm looking at my footnotes over here, and I'm like, oh my God.
yeah, I'm gonna keep
All right,
this piece of
we're-
paper.
We're pretty close, but we will finish that up at our next meeting, which is what date?
15.
Okay, yeah. that's nice. Yippee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
So, do I hear a motion to move into executive session?
Go ahead, Brett.
Oh, come on, just close that out. I'm gonna,
Am I?
It's gonna take me a minute.
Has she got it?
you got it?
That's just the.
What's the agenda?
To go into executive.
I move to go into executive session according to Mass General Law, Chapter 214, S1B, and Mass General Law, Chapter 4S, and 4, 5, and 7, Clause 220, 26C, to discuss financial assistance to residents in need.
Second motion.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.